I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name is Mike, and I've been with Sarah for about 10 years. We got married right after college, and for a long time I honestly thought we had a pretty normal, steady life. She's always been a bit bitchy, quick to argue, and pretty manipulative. She's the kind of woman who can lie through her teeth and make you doubt your own eyes. But I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Lately, though, I'd noticed little things. She'd be acting distant, canceling nights out, or suddenly having these mysterious business trips that she never really wanted to talk about. She'd come home late without any explanation, and her phone was glued to her hand, always hiding texts or calls. I didn't want to be paranoid, but I can admit I was starting to get suspicious. Still, I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. Maybe she was just stressed, or maybe she was working late. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling deep down that something was wrong. Then came the recital. Our daughter, Emily, has been playing the violin for a few years now, and she was finally performing at this big event downtown. It was supposed to be a proud moment. I remember standing there, feeling this swell of pride as Emily took the stage with her tiny violin. Sarah was supposed to be sitting next to me, but she kept leaving her seat, whispering to some other moms, looking overly nervous. I thought maybe she was just anxious or trying to fix her makeup. The thing is, I didn't think much of it until I saw her slip away during a break. I was trying to find her, maybe grab some water, when I saw her disappearing into a side practice room with a guy I didn't recognize. My heart sank. I froze for a second, watching her go in with this guy, who I now know was Eric, Emily's violin teacher. They looked familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. She was pretending to be discussing advanced lessons, but the way she kept leaning into him, giggling, touching his arm, it was so obvious they weren't just talking about music. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, Sarah, the woman I trusted, the woman I married, was cheating on me with Emily's teacher right at our daughter's recital. While I was sitting there feeling proud of Emily, she was in that room, clearly having sex with this guy. That moment hit me like a freight train. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, watching the door, feeling this weird mix of rage, heartbreak, and disbelief. How long had this been going on? Did she think I wouldn't notice? I saw her come out of that room a few minutes later, acting casual, like everything was normal, but her face was flushed, and her eyes were darting around as if she'd been caught doing something she knew was wrong. When I finally confronted her later that night, she spun this whole story about how Eric was just giving her extra lessons and that I was overreacting. But I had the evidence. Her phone had messages, flirty, suggestive texts that she'd deleted but not entirely gone. Her clothes that night had a faint scent of musk, and I found a condom wrapper in the trash, hidden behind some old receipts. She tried to deny everything, calling me crazy, accusing me of snooping or being paranoid. But I knew what I saw. I'd caught her red-handed, and nothing she said could erase that image from my mind. The emotional toll hit me hard. I went from feeling betrayed, furious even, to feeling devastated. How could she do this? How could she betray our family like this, right in front of our daughter? I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept replaying everything in my head, wondering how long this had been going on, whether she'd been cheating on me for months or just that night. It was like my entire world had shattered into pieces, and I was standing there, trying to hold on to what was left of my dignity while everything I believed in turned out to be a lie. After that night, everything changed. I stayed up all night, staring at my phone and trying to process what I'd seen. At first, I couldn't believe she'd actually done it, cheated on me, on our daughter, at her recital no less. It felt like my insides were trying to tear themselves apart. I was furious, yes, but mostly I was just hurt. I thought I knew her, thought I knew us, and now it all seemed like lie. The next morning, I couldn't look her in the eye. She was acting normal, too normal, honestly. She woke up with her usual bitchy attitude, throwing her hair over her shoulder, complaining about everything from the weather to her breakfast, but I saw through it. She's always been a good liar when she wants to be, and she knew she'd been caught. Still, she kept denying it, calling me paranoid or crazy. She said Eric was just a professional she was helping prepare for an upcoming concert. Yeah, right. That's what she told everyone afterward, but I wasn't buying it. I decided I had to get some proof. I couldn't just take her word for it. Hell, she'd lie about anything. So I started snooping. I went through her phone, her emails, her social media. I found more than I wanted: messages, photos, flirtatious exchanges that went way beyond just lessons. There were pictures of her in bed with Eric, their faces close, both of them smiling like they were sharing some secret nobody else was supposed to know. I felt my stomach drop again, like a punch to the gut. How could she do this? How could she be so callous? She knew I'd find out, and still she kept going. I also found out that she'd been seeing Eric for months, not just that night at the recital. She'd carefully planned it, slipping away whenever she thought I wasn't paying attention. Sometimes she'd go to study sessions. Other times she'd meet him after I left for work. It wasn't just a fling, it was an affair, and she'd been lying to my face every step of the way. When I confronted her again, I finally exploded. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen the pictures, the messages. I told her how betrayed I felt, how she betrayed me as a husband, as a father, as someone who thought we had a real family. Her reaction was cold, dismissive, like I was bothering her with my stupid suspicions. She called me possessive, jealous, even crazy for thinking she'd cheat on me with a violin teacher. "Eric's just a friend," she snapped, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting. This is all in your head." But I saw her lie. I saw her trying to gaslight me, trying to make me doubt my own senses. I was done listening to her bullshit. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I couldn't live with her anymore, knowing what she'd done. She just scoffed, said I was overreacting, that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. I felt like I was losing my mind. How could she treat everything like it was nothing? I never thought I'd be in this position, married to a woman who'd cheat on me in such a blatant, cruel way. That emotional roller coaster kept swinging. I was angry, then sad, then numb. I kept questioning everything. Was I too controlling? Was I missing signs? Or was she just a bitch who got off on lying and sneaking around? The hardest part was realizing that I'd loved her, cared for her, thought she was my partner. And she threw all that away for a quick fuck with a guy who was supposed to be teaching our daughter how to play violin. Every time I thought about her in that room with him, I felt sick. I started to hate her, but I also felt this deep, hopeless ache inside, like I'd lost a part of myself. How could she do this? How could she look in my face and lie so easily? I kept telling myself I'd be stronger, that I'd find a way to move on. But I knew this was going to change everything. I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, and I didn't see any way back from it. I just wanted her gone and the truth to come out, no matter how much pain it would cause. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to piece everything together. I knew I couldn't keep living in this fog of betrayal and lies. The more I looked into her phone, her social media, the more I realized how long this affair had been going on. It wasn't just that night at the recital. Sarah had been sneaking around behind my back for months. Every time I asked about her business trips, she'd brush me off, act defensive, accuse me of mistrust. But I'd been right all along, and now I had the evidence to prove it. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, feeling this strange mix of dread and relief. Relief because I finally knew the truth, and dread because I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I couldn't go on pretending everything was fine. I couldn't ignore the fact that she'd been lying to my face, cheating behind my back, and acting like it was nothing. The anger started to boil over. I wanted her to feel what I felt, that deep, cold betrayal. I wanted her to see that I knew everything. One night, I decided I'd confront her again, but this time more directly. I called her into the living room, told her I knew the truth about her affair with Eric, and that I wanted an honest explanation. Her face twisted into that familiar smirk, like she was amused that I was finally catching up. She sat down, crossing her arms, and rolled her eyes. "Look, Mike," she said, her voice dripping with contempt, "this is all so ridiculous. You're just jealous and you're trying to control me. Eric's just a friend, okay? He's helping Emily with her lessons, and you're blowing things out of proportion. You're always so paranoid, so insecure. Maybe if you weren't so insecure, I wouldn't have to do this behind your back." I felt my blood boil. I couldn't believe she'd try to turn this around on me. I told her I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I'd seen the messages, the photos, the evidence. and her response was to deny everything, call me crazy, and accuse me of being possessive. She kept gaslighting me, saying I was imagining things, that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. I was furious. How could she treat this like some petty argument? She was caught red-handed, and she still refused to take responsibility. The worst part was how she lied so effortlessly, like it was all a game to her. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me, all while her eyes darted around, looking so damn guilty. I could see right through her. It was like watching someone try to cover up a crime they'd just committed. And I realized I had to get out of this cycle, that I couldn't stay married to someone who lied and cheated and treated me like I was nothing. That night, I went to bed feeling emptier than I had in years. The betrayal cut so deep that I couldn't breathe. I kept replaying everything in my head, the way she lied, the way she looked at Eric, the way she thought she could get away with this. I wondered how long she'd been deceiving me, how many nights she'd spent sneaking around with him while I was at work or asleep. I felt this crushing sense of loss for what we'd had, and a fierce desire to make her pay for what she'd done. In the silence of the night, I made a decision. I knew I couldn't stay with someone so manipulative, so dishonest. I had to find a way to end this, to reclaim my life and dignity. I didn't know exactly what that looked like yet, but I knew I had to start planning. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, pretending I didn't know she'd been cheating on me with our daughter's violin teacher. That secret had become a weight I carried every day, and I was finally ready to throw it off. The days that followed were a blur of planning and emotional turmoil. I knew I couldn't stay passive, not after what I'd uncovered. I had to do something, but I also knew I needed to be careful. Sarah was good at covering her tracks, and I didn't want to give her the chance to spin up some new lie and save herself. So I started gathering everything, screenshots of messages, photos she'd never know I kept, even a recording of her on the phone whispering sweet nothings to Eric while she thought no one was listening. It was sickening, honestly. I'd never thought I'd become this kind of guy, snooping, spying, digging through her stuff like some detective from a cheap crime show. But I didn't see another way. I had to protect myself, and more than that, I had to protect my kid. Emily deserved honesty, and I owed it to myself to finally confront this head-on. One afternoon, I waited until she was out of the house, gone for her meeting that she'd lied about, and I slipped into her closet to look for anything suspicious. Sure enough, hidden behind a pile of clothes, I found her phone charger, and when I checked her messages, the proof was all there. I saw her sending flirty texts at 2 a.m., agreeing to meet Eric somewhere private. There were pictures of them together, her in sexy lingerie, him with his hand on her thigh. I felt my stomach tighten, but I also knew I had to face her again with everything laid out on the table. When she got home, I told her to sit down. I pulled out the evidence, screenshots, recordings, and even her own photos. Her face paled instantly. She stammered, tried to deny everything, but I cut her off. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore, that I knew she'd been cheating on me with Emily's teacher for months. Her usual bitchy attitude kicked in, and she started yelling, calling me obsessive, insecure, and crazy for spying. She said I was ruining her life, her reputation, her relationship with Emily, but I wasn't about to let her gaslight me anymore. I told her she had two choices. She could come clean and face the consequences, or she could keep lying and see how far I was willing to go. I made it clear that I was done playing her game. This was over. She scoffed, called me a stupid idiot, and stormed out of the room, but I knew I had her cornered now. I also knew that no matter what she said, the truth was out, and I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I finally knew the truth and had evidence to back it up, but dread because I knew this was just the beginning. The betrayal wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the complete breakdown of trust, of everything I thought we stood for. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to her manipulations. I felt stupid and angry and honestly kind of lost. But I also knew I couldn't keep living like this. I had to decide what I was going to do about her, about Emily, about my own sanity. The plan was starting to form in my head, even if I wasn't ready to execute it yet. I just wanted this nightmare to end, and I knew I had to be the one to make that happen. I was tired of feeling helpless, tired of feeling like I was the only one trying to hold everything together. The betrayal had shattered everything, and I was starting to realize I'd finally have to rebuild from the ground up. Over the next few days, I really started to think through my options. I knew I had to act, but I also wanted to be strategic about it. Sarah was arrogant. She thought she could lie her way out of anything, but I had enough evidence now to make her realize she couldn't keep hiding. I decided I'd wait for the right moment to confront her more openly, to lay everything out in a way that she couldn't deny or wiggle her way out of. I needed her to see that I was serious, that I knew everything, and that I wouldn't stand for her betrayal anymore. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, pretending like nothing was wrong, throwing shade at me when I tried to talk to her. She'd snap, call me crazy, accuse me of stalking, and then go back to her usual bitchy attitude like she hadn't just been caught screwing around behind my back. It was maddening. I felt like I was losing my mind trying to figure out how someone can lie so effortlessly and still sleep at night, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it forever. One afternoon, I decided to call her bluff. I told her I had everything, proof, recordings, pictures, everything she'd ever tried to hide. I told her I was done wasting my time and that I wanted her out of the house by the end of the week. Her reaction was pure venom. She went off on me, screaming about how I was ruining our family, how I was controlling her, and how she deserved better than to be cast aside like some common cheat. But I'd already made up my mind. This wasn't about her feelings anymore. It was about protecting what was left of my dignity and making her face the consequences of her actions. That night, she packed a bag and left, claiming she needed space and time to think. I watched her walk out the door, feeling this strange mix of relief and devastation. Part of me wanted to chase after her, beg her to stay, but I knew I couldn't. Not anymore. This was the end of the line for us. I was finally seeing her true colors, and I'd be damned if I let her manipulate her way out of everything she'd done. Loneliness hit me hard afterward. I sat alone in the quiet house, staring at the empty space where she used to sleep. It was surreal. I'd gone from feeling betrayed and furious to feeling hollow. I kept thinking about Emily, about all the nights I'd spent trying to be a good husband and father, only to find out that the woman I loved had been lying to me for months. I also wondered what her next move would be. Would she try to fight me legally? Would she try to take Emily? Or would she just disappear altogether? I didn't know, but I knew I had to keep my guard up. In that moment, I realized I'd learned something very valuable. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. I'd given her my love, my loyalty, my trust, only to have it thrown back in my face. But I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in this heartbreak forever. I had to focus on moving forward, on protecting my daughter, and on healing myself. It wasn't going to be easy, not by a long shot, but I was done being the victim. I was going to take control of my life again, no matter how much it hurt. That's what real strength is, I guess, facing the pain head-on and finding a way to rebuild from the ruins. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into trying to stabilize what was left of my life. The house was eerily quiet without Sarah, and every time I walked past her side of the bed or saw her clothes still hanging in the closet, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I knew I had to stay strong, for Emily, for myself. I started legal proceedings to get custody of her, knowing that Sarah would probably try to fight me or manipulate the situation. But I was determined to protect our daughter from her mother's lies and betrayal. During this process, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I'd been so blinded by love that I ignored the signs early on. I learned that some people are just inherently selfish and manipulative, and no matter how much you want to believe in their better side, sometimes they just don't change. I also learned that revenge, in my case, wasn't about hurting Sarah just for the sake of it, but about reclaiming my dignity and making her realize she couldn't cheat and lie without consequences. It's strange how what initially felt like pure rage gradually turned into a quiet resolve to rebuild, to heal, and to move forward. Emily, thankfully, was still young enough that she didn't fully grasp everything about what went down. But I knew she sensed the tension, the sadness, the change. I promised myself I'd be there for her, that I'd give her the stable, honest life she deserved. Seeing her smile again, even just for a moment, reminded me why I had to get through this mess, because she was worth it and I owed her the truth. As for Sarah, she tried to come back, of course. She started calling, sending messages, trying to apologize or manipulate her way back into my life. But I didn't buy any of it. I saw through her lies, her threats, her tears. I knew she was only sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she did. I cut her out completely, realizing some betrayals are irreparable. The trust was gone, replaced by a cold realization that I'd been played the entire time. Looking back, I can't say I'm fully healed, certainly not yet. But I am stronger. I've learned that love doesn't mean blind trust, and sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away from someone who doesn't value you. I hope other guys out there who find themselves in similar situations learn that they aren't alone, and that standing up for yourself, even when it's easier to stay quiet, is the real act of strength. I never imagined my life would take this turn. But if anything, this experience has taught me that sometimes a painful ending is just the beginning of something new. I'm finally starting to rebuild my life, piece by piece. And honestly, it feels like the first real step toward finally feeling like I can trust myself again.